Hey everyone, important question. Are you experiencing energy crashes, blood sugar crashes, increased cravings for sugar and carbs? If this is you and you're saying yes, you definitely want to join me for today's vlog because we're going to be talking all about low blood sugar and adrenal fatigue and how they impact each other and fuel each other and honestly leave you feeling anxiety, leave you feeling stressed, leave you feeling absolutely depleted, hungry, craving sugar, shaky, not fun at all. So we're going to dive more into that today. This is something I've actually been dealing with as I've been working through adrenal fatigue. You'll have to make sure you check out the rest of the series. You can click the link below for the whole playlist. But adrenal fatigue is no joke on its own, let alone adrenal fatigue and one of its kind of partner symptoms, low blood sugar or hypoglycemia. So we're going to dive into that today. And of course, we're going to also talk a little bit about some little things we can start to do to shift this. And then I'll share a whole other vlog where we go more in depth with blood sugar regulation, because I find not only does this contribute to a lot of symptoms, which I'll get into today, it also can be a binge and emotional eating trigger. And adrenal fatigue can be a binge and emotional eating trigger. And I'm going to create a whole binge adrenal fatigue vlog coming up as well, so you won't want to miss that. But right before we dive into all those details, I want to just introduce myself for all of the new subscribers. My name is Amber Romaniuk, and I'm an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert, and I've helped thousands of women and men all over the world overcome binge and emotional eating, identify the roots of their hormone and gut issues, build body confidence, gain the energy back, and step into who they've always dreamed of being, while having their optimal health and having food and body freedom. So if you are new here, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on new vlogs. I share them on Wednesdays and you will learn a lot, and it's just gonna help you become more in tune with your body, your health, and your well-being. So thank you for being here, and hit that like button if you like what you're hearing. It helps me know what you wanna see more of and how I can help you all on your journey to food and body freedom. So let's dive in, okay? I want to talk a little bit about an experience I've been going through the last few weeks. So as you know or may not know, I am working on healing adrenal fatigue for the third time. If you want to hear the story, go back to part one of the vlog for more. But essentially, what I've really noticed is my sleep has been really impacted, and I have not been sleeping well for the last 6 weeks. And I'm having a common theme happen with sleep, and you're going to want to stay with me for this because this is very eye-opening. So I've been waking to go to the bathroom around like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then laying there for at least 1 or 2 hours wide awake. And it's usually there's a 3 a.m. window somewhere in there, whether I'm already awake or I'm staying awake through 3 to 4 a.m. and then eventually fall back to sleep. But as we know, with adrenal health and adrenal issues, broken sleep is one of the worst things to help recover from adrenal fatigue. You do want to make sure you're trying to sleep fully through the night. And if you're not, then we can talk more about that in another episode with sleep, hormones, etc. But I've been awake for this 2 to 3 hour window, and it's exhausting. It's so tiring. Who agrees? Like, it's not fun to be awake in the middle of the night. And so what I started to, check in on is, what the heck could that be about? And of course, the liver plays a huge role in processing through toxicity around the 2 to 3 a.m. window. And of course, our liver plays a role with our blood sugar and our insulin and glucose. And we're going to talk about the storage and all of that. And what I started to realize when I dug in and did a little more reading and just tapped into my body a little bit more is, holy moly, I am having a blood sugar wake up. And I'm awake for this period of time because my blood sugar is off because of the adrenal fatigue, but that's what's keeping me awake in the night. And so once I kind of had this epiphany and looked a little more into it, because I'm pretty good with understanding what low blood sugar is and of course adrenal fatigue, but that waking in the night thing, I was kind of like, is that my liver? Is that my thyroid? Because there's other imbalances that can contribute to that. So that just made sense. And I'm like, oh yes. When we have adrenal fatigue, our blood sugar becomes so much more sensitive, and we become so much more sensitive, and our blood sugar will almost feel like an emotional, physical roller coaster of spikes and crashes. And so once I realized that that was contributing to my sleep, I started to get even more diligent with my blood sugar through the day, and I will talk more about that and why it's so important for us to be very mindful of keeping our blood sugar regulated with our meals, the kinds of things we're eating, adding in different teas and spices, even different supplements that we can use to help regulate blood sugar while we're working on overcoming adrenal fatigue. What's still at the core is the adrenal fatigue is fueling the low blood sugar or hypoglycemia, and hypoglycemia is a very common side symptom that can really affect us when we have adrenal fatigue. And I've noticed since I've been being more mindful with my blood sugar, I eat regularly through the day as it is, but I've been being even more diligent, making sure I don't go more than 3 hours without eating, and it is making a difference. My sleep still isn't the greatest. I fall asleep easily, but sometimes I'm still awake a little bit in the night, but I haven't been awake for that 2+ hour gap since I started to become more diligent last week. And so this is really important because a lot of people have blood sugar issues, low blood sugar, and they have adrenal fatigue, and you might not even know it. If this is the case for you and you want to connect and talk more about this and get support with this, you can click the link in the description and book a 30-minute complimentary body freedom consultation. It's via Zoom. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. I connect with people all over, and we can talk more about your adrenal health, your blood sugar, cravings, your relationship with food, weight, body image, gut health, mindset, stress levels, etc. And also talk more about what's working, what isn't, and how potentially getting some support, doing some testing, some health assessing could really help you along on your way. All, of course, without diets, restriction, or anything extreme. I'm not a believer in any of that. I believe slow and steady and taking a balanced approach is the key, and that has helped all of my clients and me the most. So the link for that is below if you do want to connect, because this can start to get overwhelming if we're not fully aware or attuned with our bodies and we don't know what's happening. And then, maybe you have anxiety, but maybe what's at the root of it is not just stress. Maybe you have a really massive adrenal imbalance and you have low blood sugar and you're not eating or taking care of your body in a way that is going to course correct either of those. And then you're having to live in the discomfort of having anxiety all the time, which is not fun at all. I've had anxiety with adrenal fatigue, and I've had anxiety because I didn't know how to manage my blood sugar in the past when this was happening, and it's so uncomfortable. This can also really impact our mood as well, and I'm going to talk more about that. And I want to touch a little bit on the process of how this all happens in the body. So you have an adrenal insufficiency, your cortisol is too high, your cortisol is too low, and when the blood sugar dips low between eating, the adrenal glands signal. They're going, hello, liver. Gotta try and add a little bit of humor in here. But they're like signaling to the liver to secrete stored blood sugar, which is also called glycogen, to keep your blood sugar levels stable, right? Your body's always trying to bring you back to homeostasis. It's just that we, by accidentally, get in the way with our habits and cravings and stressors. How many of you can relate? I'm curious if any of you crave refined sugar, refined carbohydrates like baked goods, cookies, cakes, candies, chocolate. Leave a comment below. Our cravings can tell us a lot about what's going on in our bodies, physically and emotionally, and I've been dropping some shorts on that as well, so go and check out my shorts. You're gonna learn a lot about cravings and your relationship with food in this vlog along the way as well. Just haven't quite gotten there yet. There's so much to share. I have a whole list full of notes of things I want to talk about, but I have to pace myself because one of the things about regulating your adrenals is to try to not be on technology too much, right? And obviously I'm running an online business, so here I am. But tech boundaries, like we talked about in part 3, very important. So the liver is secreting glycogen to help keep your blood sugar regulated, but when your adrenals are depleted and exhausted, what ends up happening is they don't respond well. It's just your body's in a heightened state of stress. Nothing's going to respond as good. You're going to feel more sensitive. And the body stays more in a low blood sugar state, a more hypoglycemic state. And especially when we're in this state, you will crave, like I said, more sugars and refined carbs. And so then if you're craving those and you don't know about any of this, you're naturally just gonna reach for sugars, you're gonna reach for breads, you're gonna reach for caffeine to try and give you an energy boost, you're gonna reach for fruits, you're gonna reach for starch. But that just gives us big spikes and drops. When we combine whole food carbohydrates with fats and proteins, that's truly the key, and I'll get more into that. But that's something that's really important for us to really start looking into is, are we missing food? And so here's an example. So I always try to eat something within 30 to 45 minutes of waking up. And I get up, I do my morning routine, which I'm gonna do a video vlog. Tell me if you wanna see it below. I'm gonna do my morning routine, to be supportive of adrenal health, the self-care practices I do, the lymphatic drainage I do. I'll show you my food if you want to see it, just some things that I add in to help with blood sugar and adrenal health. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. Again, I want to, create the things that you're interested in and that are going to help you the most. So, I would get up, do my thing, get downstairs, make my smoothie, which I use a ton of cinnamon. I add 30 grams of protein. I add, probably 15 to 20 grams of fat, and I add my berries, and ginger and like other spices and things to just make it really medicinal, spinach, greens. So it's very satisfying and it feels really good for me. But what I was noticing is as I was getting up, my blood sugar was crashing before I was getting downstairs to make my smoothie. And so I'm like, okay, I think I need to add something small in before I have my breakfast. So what I started to do was get up, do my journal, have water. I take my desiccated thyroid to just support when I had a hypothyroid issue. And I'm going to make a whole thyroid vlog. So be here for that too. Hashimoto's, underactive thyroid, all that stuff. I've had so many clients deal with that. So subscribe, make sure you're here because you're going to learn a lot that, maybe you're not being told or assisted with in Western, modalities. So I started getting up and doing a half of an apple loaded with cinnamon and a little bit of flax or hemp just for a bit of fat. And I noticed right away my blood sugar crash that was happening about 10 to 15 minutes before I ate started to resolve. So that was really exciting. And then I started to add in a hard-boiled egg with my smoothie just for even more protein. So when we have adrenal fatigue, it's very important we have carbohydrates with breakfast. And I'm talking fruits, veggies, more starchy vegetables. We want to have fats and proteins with all of our meals. But if we're just having a lot of fat and protein, we don't have the carbohydrate, our adrenal glands will get more exhausted and more tired. And I made that mistake the first time I was healing adrenal fatigue, which I'll talk more about food and adrenal fatigue in another vlog because I want to try and, like I said, keep these as short as possible. My last one was 30 minutes, probably a little long for YouTube, but you guys are here for it. So that made a big difference with my blood sugar. I added in extra nuts and veggies and an egg for my mid-morning snack after my smoothie about 2 hours later. And then of course my lunch and dinner are very rich in protein, very rich in fat. And then making sure I have starchy vegetables with non-starchy because it's important that we have that energy for the adrenals. But we have to have fat and protein with our meals to regulate our blood sugar also. And so this is where it can get a little really overwhelming, confusing. What do I eat? What do I not eat? It's actually not that hard, but it's just about getting to know what's easy for you to make. So I wanted to just touch on that. But I noticed my blood sugar regulate a lot more. And then I started taking an additional liver support, and that started to help prevent the 2+ hour being awake in the night. I'm still awake a little bit, but I think it's just because my nervous system is processing through a lot. And so the other thing is when your adrenals are overworked and overburdened, it can actually drive you into an increase in fasting glucose, which of course, first thing in the morning can flag high, and you can end up with a high hemoglobin A1C in your blood work. It's always good to get testing done and make sure there's nothing else going on. If you want to talk about doing hormone testing in the hormone balance package, you can book a consultation. The link is below, and we would connect and talk about all of this there. It's a free to connect for 30 minutes. I highly encourage it. You're going to learn a lot, and then we can decide if there's something we want to work on together. So other things, when you wake and you have adrenal issues and you have blood sugar issues, for some people you might be like, I wake up and I feel nauseous, I feel anxious, I don't feel hungry at all, I don't want to eat. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because your symptoms are fueling this reaction, but then the reaction is fueling the nausea, and not eating is going to continue to make your adrenals and your blood sugar crash even more. So it really is hard on the liver because we are in this state of, using and living off of these glycogen stores from your liver, which we're not supposed to be for longer periods of time. And that can trigger and overwhelm the liver, hence part of the 2 to 3 a.m. waking for me in the middle of the night. And for some of you that may be feeling the nausea, luckily I never had that, but that's something to think about. So when the adrenals are in a imbalanced state, a dysregulated state, whatever you want to call it, they don't signal correctly to any part of the body, including the liver. So we'll bounce between energy highs and, sugar craving highs. And then we have crashes. It's like blood sugar crash, energy crash. And then all of a sudden we are just left with craving. You're like, oh, maybe I'll have caffeine. Maybe I'll have more sugar. Maybe that'll keep me going. But that just will throw everything in the opposite direction that you want it to go in. But this 3 a.m. thing like blew my mind because it just was making such a difference with my sleep. So the liver plays a huge role in, essentially expending these glycogen stores if we're not eating, and or to help us regulate our blood sugar. So let's talk a bit about some of the other symptoms of hypoglycemia, because some of them are similar to adrenal fatigue, but like I said, they really go hand in hand. So the anxiety, the fatigue, shakiness, hangry, right? Like who hasn't experienced feeling hangry, right? You're irritable, you're angry, because your blood sugar's dropped, your mood drops, your energy drops. You may also notice that your speech, like you don't speak as clearly. You may feel slightly like depressed if you're not eating enough, excessive sweating, blurred vision. Obviously, if these things persist and get worse, go get it checked out ASAP. Do not just try and, think, oh, I just need to eat more fat and protein. Like you go get testing, you go see your doctor, whatever you need to do. But I think that it's so important that we start to understand these symptoms are directly correlated with both adrenal issues and blood sugar, and that we need to work on both at the same time. So who's experiencing some of these symptoms? Let me know in the chat. And I want you to build awareness with your body. Part of me sharing this is about you understanding and looking at, okay, like I notice a pattern. Like with me, I would wake up, within 20 minutes of waking up, I'd start to have a blood sugar crash before I got downstairs to have breakfast. I'd start to feel the anxiety. I'd start to feel a little lightheaded and faint. I'd start to feel brain fog and kind of like fuzzier thinking, and my mood would drop, and I'd feel that like anxiousness even though something wasn't wrong, and it was relieved by eating. And that's another way you have a low blood sugar picture, is that you have these symptoms come in, or maybe it's just one or two, but they're relieved by eating, because once you eat, your blood sugar regulates, right? All of these things that I've been talking about come back into sync. But it might crash really fast if you've only eaten like processed foods or caffeine, or like something that isn't going to satiate you for more than a couple of hours. And like we know, some of our adrenal symptoms are things like brain fog, anxiety, exhaustion, low energy. And I find that blood sugar and hypoglycemia and adrenal fatigue also will heavily contribute to afternoon energy lulls and crashes. So often it's women that are more impacted by the adrenal fatigue, hypoglycemia picture. Obviously, men can be impacted by it as well, but we just have a different hormone state. I feel our bodies are more sensitive. We have different hormones that we produce. We're more just, the feminine is different than the masculine. And I just think that we process and feel things differently. And so our blood sugar can be more sensitive. I think also being that we reproduce, that plays a role as well. But abdominal weight gain, feeling puffy, feeling bloated, looser stools, cravings of sugar, carbohydrates, refined salts, right? Just to give you guys a reminder, but go back and watch the rest of this series if you haven't, to catch up, because you're going to learn so much about your symptoms, your health, your well-being, adrenal fatigue, and a lot more. So the confusing thing is a lot of the symptoms are the same for both low blood sugar and adrenal fatigue. So it can be hard to kind of go like, what exactly is going on, right? But we usually have both. So we might as well like address it like we have both. And if you feel this resolve after eating, this is probably something that is going on. So like I've been saying, the adrenal glands play a huge role in blood sugar regulation. I cannot bring this home enough. If you take anything away, it is to understand how significantly connected they are. And like I said, I'm going to create a whole vlog that talks about the energy blood sugar crashes and cravings, and how this can be a very strong binge and emotional eating trigger. Whether or not I went through binge eating, binging and purging, food addiction, and emotional eating, and healed them all myself before I started my business, because that journey helped inspire me to want to start my business and help others do the same. And wow, when I had adrenal issues and blood sugar issues and I didn't yet know how to manage through, and I was still binge eating, those were some of the most common triggers that I had. So you're not alone. If this is going on for you, I have a free emotional eating quiz you can take below. You can click the link. It will ask you some questions, and then you'll get some awesome podcast resources that will help you along on the way of your journey to understanding your triggers better. And then this is where the consultation also comes in, because we can talk about helping you to overcome fully gain freedom fully from binge and emotional eating, your hormone issues, etc. Okay, so this is so important for us to understand these connections and how everything is intertwined. I think, again, like I've always been saying in these vlogs, it's not just one thing. Everything is multi-layered, and it impacts our mood. It impacts us emotionally, physically. So be aware of if you wait too long to eat, because I tell you, if I accidentally wait too long to eat right now, I'm having the blood sugar crash, and the symptoms that come along with it aren't fun. So I'm doing my due diligence to prevent that from happening altogether, because I don't want to go into the blood sugar crash, because as soon as that happens, you're putting your body into even more of a stress response, and you're going to flood more cortisol and adrenaline through your body, which is just going to make your adrenal fatigue worse. So some of the worst things we can do while we have this, and this is why I'm always talking about eating breakfast and eating within half an hour of waking up, is when you have adrenal issues and blood sugar issues, it is so important for helping your adrenal glands balance and the blood sugar, and eating regularly through the day, not going more than 3 hours without eating. It is so important. You'll notice a huge difference. And when we don't skip meals and we, honor that regulation and eat consistently, you'll have less of a chance of later day binge eating, emotional eating, or heightened cravings that trigger you to want to go and gorge on junk, that then you feel guilt and shame and regret and all of that. You don't have to feel that way. There's a lot that can be done to overcome it. I know what it feels like to constantly beat yourself up, and I'll talk more about that. But I see you, I hear you, I'm here to support you and hold you in this space. So make sure that you don't skip meals, please. That's why it's so funny on my shorts. People are like, no, I skip breakfast. I'm like, that's okay, but I'm talking to the people who don't know about this, or that like their blood sugar is crashing and they don't realize innocently skipping breakfast is making all of this worse. It really does. So if you're having these symptoms, let me know in the comments. What are you learning? What are you taking away? This is really important. So I want to talk a bit about hypoglycemia as I wrap up, and talk a little bit about what we can start to do to support this better. Okay, so cinnamon is great for blood sugar. It contains chromium, which is a blood sugar supporting mineral. That's why I put it on my apple when I wake up with my nuts and seeds. That's why I put it in my smoothie. I put like a teaspoon of cinnamon in my smoothie. So I absolutely love it. You can do teas that have cinnamon in them. Rooibos teas are also really good for blood sugar. I have a nice herbal chai rooibos, great to sip on. And it's also good for your adrenal health as well. So you're getting a double dose with that. So make sure you try stuff like that. I think it's important to understand we need to eat carbohydrates with our proteins and fats each meal. Now, I'm not talking about white bread and white rice. I'm talking about sweet potatoes, carrots, peas, beets, starchy vegetables with non-starchy, right? Beans, broccoli, whatever it is that you like, but having a variety. You could try things like quinoa, brown rice ideally, but we want to make sure we're having whole food carbohydrates, and then that we're pairing them with proteins and fats. So chicken, fish, beef, turkey, bison, also things like fats, avocados, egg yolks, fish, nuts and seeds, raw ideally, good oils. And then if we combine these things, you're going to notice you feel satiated for longer, your blood sugar is regulated for longer, and you don't have those massive crashes or cravings. So these are some things that you can start with. But what I don't suggest is going low carb, going into a keto or carnivore or fasting, because when you have an adrenal issue, those kinds of eating styles and diets will make the adrenal issue worse and can make your blood sugar worse because of the adrenal issue you're making worse. You need carbs for your adrenals, okay? And then the other issue with restrictive diets, for those of you struggling with binge and emotional eating, is they'll often trigger you to lose control and binge. Diets don't work. I don't believe in heavy restriction anyway, and it can often trigger more of what we don't want. So we want to kind of try to avoid those things. So what are you learning from this? There's so much here. I was so excited to film this today because hypoglycemia and adrenal fatigue are not a good mix. They really can make a person feel like garbage. You think like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just these imbalances really have an impact on us. So let me know in the comments below, what are you learning? If you have any questions, you can also leave them in the comments. Can you relate to this? What do you want to see next? I'm probably going to drop the vlog on binge eating, adrenal fatigue, and blood sugar, and how these imbalances fuel self-sabotage with food. I want you guys to really get the connection. So we'll see what drops next week, but it'll either be that or more blood sugar supporting tips. Let me know in the comments what you want to see. I really want to hear from you. And thank you for being with me. It's so fun filming this vlog. I've just been absolutely enjoying it and sharing like my personal experience along the way, because I get it, I'm going through it too, and we can resolve it. So before you leave me today, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you don't miss a video. Come and take the free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling and you want to get some podcasts to support you. And if you want to connect and talk about support, that body freedom consultation, honestly, it will be one of the best sessions you ever have. And then we can see if there's more we can do to really help you on your journey to food and body freedom. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.